Imagine stepping into a taxi and being greeted by Siri. I mean, where's the nice elderly man with the heavy accent who's gonna blast pop music on the radio the entire ride while impassionately arguing over the phone in a different language? The virtual assistant welcomed me as I stepped in, and before I knew it, we were off. That was just the beginning of my first ever experience riding in a self-driving Waymo taxi when I visited Phoenix, Arizona a few summers ago. At the time, it was one of the only cities where the service was available. And let me tell you, it was a surreal experience. For starters, the car itself looked like something straight out of a Back to the Future movie, with different spinning sensors and cameras bulging out of the car. The steering wheel spun completely on its own, and for some reason, the virtual assistant kept asking us what music we wanted to play. Keep in mind that I had just gotten in, and I did not trust its thing at all. So to me, this question sounded like, do you want to get into an accident with smooth jazz or 80s rock playing in the background? For this reason, the first 2 minutes I remember staring intently at the steering wheel and following every single turn, comparing it to the little map that was integrated into the seat backs in front of the car that showed intersections, cars, pedestrians, and any other objects that the Waymo detected. And I was doing all of this to assess the skills of a driver that wasn't even there. But self-driving taxis weren't the only thing that shocked me about Phoenix. The other thing was how large it was. I knew Phoenix was a large city, but I never would have anticipated that it's the fifth most populous in America. And it's larger than New York City by a significant amount by land area. If someone came up to me on the street and asked me to name the 5 most influential or largest American cities, my list would probably consist of New York, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, DC, and Houston, and I'm sure many of you would agree with me. But not Phoenix. Now, what if I told you that if you asked a person 75 or even 100 years ago for that same exact list of cities, it would be almost identical, with just one exception. That exception is the city of Detroit, Michigan. In 1950, Detroit was considered the wealthiest city not only in America, but in the world for its bustling automotive industry, and boasted a population of over 1.8 million people. But now, the population is less than half of that, and it continues to decline. So if cities like New York and Los Angeles remain relevant to this day, what drove out over half of Detroit's population in under 75 years? What doomed it to become just another city in the Midwest? In the beginning of the 20th century, automotive technology was developing rapidly in America. 3 companies that came to be known as the Big Three, Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler, chose Detroit, Michigan as their production hub, starting with the founding of Ford Motor Company in 1903. Over the next 50 years, these 3 companies globalized the car industry, bringing countless workers, investors, and loads of money into Detroit. Factories like these were spewing out thousands of cars per day to sell first to the growing American middle class, and then to export to foreign markets. And by 1950, over 3/4 of the world's cars were produced in Detroit. But the 1950s were a turbulent time in America. There were raw material shortages following World War II manufacturing, as well as growing conflicts between industry leaders and laborers, which made it difficult for Detroit to thrive like it had before. Small competitors like Toyota and Honda, who were previously shut out by Detroit's dominance of that industry, created smaller, more fuel-efficient cars in the 1970s when gas prices skyrocketed. and they took over Detroit's markets. But why did these small foreign markets adapt? Well, Detroit didn't. Didn't they have so many more resources, so much more time, money, professionals to put into research and development of cars that would be appealing to consumers? The reason is because Detroit's automotive leaders were way too comfortable. There's a famous saying by American businessman Burt Lance: if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And the reality is that almost all of us live by this rule. It's logical, right? Why waste time, money, and effort trying to improve upon something when it's already proven to work? For Detroit, profits were high, unions were strong, and innovation felt risky, like a waste of money. Why should they gamble when they're already winning? But that's the paradox of innovation. Comfort actually kills creativity, while crisis is the thing that invites it. But Detroit's story isn't just about cars. It can be compared to the concept of Darwinism. In nature, survival favors the adaptable. And the big three of Detroit were like three apex predators in a stable ecosystem until the environment changed. Small companies, Toyota and Honda, like species evolving to survive in a drought, pivoting to fuel efficiency, while Detroit lagged behind. Now, the city has just 3 car planes left. Not much of a motor city anymore, is it? When I was doing research on Detroit, it occurred to me how far we've really come in terms of cars in just over a century. I mean, if I thought a Waymo looked like something out of a sci-fi movie, imagine what Henry Ford would think. He would probably have a heart attack or a stroke before he even began to understand what it was. People in the 1900s probably considered any car to be self-driving, just because it didn't need forces to pull it. But if the initial inventors of the automobile couldn't even begin to imagine modern technologies like self-driving, then how did they develop? It's because along the development path, people didn't just improve upon their car. They completely reinvented it. One of the industries that contributed greatly to the development of cars was that of racing. The need to always be faster, more maneuverable, and overall better than competitors created a constant pressure that led to inventions such as new engine types, performance enhancers, better aerodynamics, control systems that were later used in more specialized buses, trucks, off-roaders, race cars, SUVs, to be used in every industry and for every purpose imaginable, whether it's driving kids to soccer practice or transporting tons of goods across the country. Cars and related businesses use new technologies to improve upon previous designs. A more recent example, Uber. When Uber came around, it didn't just disrupt an industry. It redefined how we think about consistency and accessibility. And it redefines our standards for what transportation should be like. Now, autonomous options like Waymo are stepping in, blending Uber's on-demand ease with something even bolder: no human driver at all. And Waymos aren't just cheaper because they don't have a driver. They're redefining accessibility and also safety. Studies show that Waymos are over 5 times as safe as regular drivers. But what's the lesson? It's that innovation never stops. If it ain't broke, you can probably still fix it. Is a play on Atlantis quote by famous actor Tim Allen. And that's exactly what keeps the world going. That's what keeps inventors inventing. And that's what keeps humanity progressing forward. In order to understand how new inventions and technologies affect economies, we need to look at history through the lens of innovation cycles or conjunctive waves. Each cycle begins not with incremental tweaks, but with radical jumps. The first and second waves employed water and steam power to create factories that allowed for mass manufacture. The third wave brought us advancements in electricity and the internal combustion engine, which Detroit used to thrive and establish itself. The fourth wave brought us advancements in aviation and electronics like computers emerged, which led to the fifth wave, which built on that. It brought us digital networks, software, and social media, all of which we use on a daily basis today. And now we're going into a sixth wave. New promising technologies like AI, artificial intelligence, robots, drones, green energy, and so much more. One example where, Detroit thought they'd mastered the combustion engine, but they ignored alternatives. They rode one wave until it crashed. But why? The reason is because an inventor needs a reason to live. Whether it's economic struggle, wanting to stand out among competitors, or just plain boredom, these factors are behind every single invention in human history. For instance, in World War II, Japan, rebuilding from atomic devastation and resource war, pioneered the philosophy of Kaizen, or continuous improvement. By the 1970s, their cars outmaneuvered Detroit's not just on the roads, but also in the markets, because they obsessed over eliminating waste and maximizing production capacity, even going as far as taking screws off of factory floors. Similarly, in the 2008 financial crisis, two leading companies in the world today, Airbnb and Uber, emerged not from Silicon Valley's optimism, but from a necessity. Airbnb's founders, who were struggling to pay rent out air mattresses in their apartment. The recession created a huge pool of workers and homeowners needing side income, so Uber asked, what if anyone could be a taxi driver? Uber turned cars into income streams. Airbnb turned spare rooms into hotels. Now, Uber is worth $82 billion, and Airbnb is worth $100 billion. In the cases of these two companies, crisis didn't just inspire innovation, it demanded. Every innovation wave brings prosperity, jobs, wealth, and optimism. Next comes uncertainty. Growth slows as markets saturate and products begin to reach that development capacity where they begin to improve upon. Next comes depression, economic depression, where systems break and industry giants fall. And then finally, there's rebirth. Startups rise up from the rubble with new ideas, new technologies ready to revolutionize how the world works. But how can one avoid getting caught up in this cycle? The only companies that are able to avoid getting caught up in this infinite cycle caused by innovation waves are those who either innovate themselves or embrace new technologies, even if it might seem risky or illogical. That's why so many successful companies, knowing that we're on the verge of a sixth innovation wave, Meta, Google, Apple, and so many more are putting billions of dollars into new technologies like AI. AI could automate jobs or spark industries that we can't even yet imagine. Startups like Helion Energy are racing to commercialize nuclear fusion, a technology that could provide nearly limitless energy for us. SpaceX, with its reusable rockets, is potentially cutting launch costs by millions of dollars, democratizing access to space. But these innovation waves don't just apply to the big mega corporations like SpaceX or Google's. Even small farms are implementing new technologies like vertical farming to fight food shortages and other problems around the world. So history's lesson is clear. Comfort is the enemy of progress. Innovation comes not from improving upon the past. It comes from reinventing it.